reflects my thinking of today as opposed to my thinking then, that I believe our approach has to be a multidimensional strategy. I think it involves, first and foremost, movement, movement building. But it also has, I say, movement building and street action. But it also has an electoral component. Because ultimately, to get the things that we want, there will come a point where there has to be some type of government action, either government action through legislation or government action in some form or another. So people say, well, what about running for office? People don't know that I did run for office. Gibson was elected out of a political convention. Let me see. After the rebellion in Newark, 2 weeks after the rebellion, there was a Black Power conference. And then a year after that, there was a Black Power convention at West Kenny Junior High School. And then a year after that, there was a Black and Puerto Rican convention. And the Community's Choice team came out of that Black and Puerto Rican convention.
Wasn't George Richardson a part of that?
George Richardson was involved, but he didn't make, I don't think he was on the Community Choice team. In fact, Richardson ran against Gibson in the general election. And, but Sharp James was on that team. Dennis Westbrooks, Central Ward Councilman, was on that team. Gibson was on that team. I'm trying to remember, Donald Tucker might have been on the team, but I don't think he got elected the first go round in 1970. I'm not sure, but I know Dennis Westbrooks because my job, after a year of not working, the next job I got was working as an aide to Central Ward Councilman Dennis Westbrooks. And that allowed me to do my school board stuff too, but I had to do stuff for him too, you know.
Larry, let me ask you this. Is Bernie Sanders the candidate for president closest to your ideas?
Absolutely.
Who has gone the farthest?
Absolutely.
In other words, you've seen other candidates coming out of that
Absolutely.
Progressive wing of the party.
Absolutely. Sanders is the closest thing right now.
But ever in your lifetime, who's gone the highest?
That's right.
With that mantle.
That's right. He's right now. Him and Jesse Jackson about even, because Jackson ran twice for president and Bernie's run twice for president. But I think that Bernie probably has a better shot than Jesse did, you know, for various reasons. But the point I'm trying to make, school board member, but people don't know I was also the youngest vice president of a school board. So as terrible as I was, the board members elected me as a vice president. There were two vice presidents, the first vice president, second vice president. I was second vice president. So Gibson came out of political convention. There was another political convention in 1974. Now, my first election to anything was to the National Black Assembly. If you go back in Black political history, people consider one of the greatest contemporary political events was the National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana in 1972. I was elected to Gary. At Gary, I was elected to the National Black Assembly, which was going to be ongoing. And at the National Black Assembly, I was elected to the National Black Political Council, where I met Dick Hatcher, who just passed last week, Richard Hatcher, the first black mayor. He was black mayor before Gibson of Gary, Indiana. So that's the beginning of my election to stuff. So there was a convention in 1974, another Community's Choice team. Ralph Grant, Jim Nance, Juliet Grant, and Larry Hamm, all city council candidates. We didn't have a mayor, and Dennis Westbrooks. We didn't have a mayoral candidate. That was the Community's Choice team of 1974. And I ran for city council.
Against the mayor's slate?
Against the mayor's slate. I was, to this day, I believe, the youngest certified city council candidate. I was 20 years old when I ran for city council. Had a good run, didn't win.
Right. Who beat you?
I ran at large. So whoever the at-large field.
How long did it take for Amiri Baraka to lose faith in Ken Gibson?
Oh man, like the first year.
What was it exactly?
Because they had a platform that came out of the convention in '69, the Black and Puerto Rican convention, that the first thing the mayor was supposed to do is appoint a black police director, because the police were a problem and still are a problem. And at that time, our perspective was to replace white with black. We thought doing that would automatically make things better, but the hard lesson was that it didn't.
But Amiri would argue that they weren't given a chance with Gibson initially.
Right. Well, Gibson appointed John Redden, an Irishman, as the first and that, I think,
that set him off.
I think that was it. And it took a long time for Gibson to appoint Lieutenant Kerr, Kerr, as the first black police director in Newark. He was the first, Lieutenant Kerr. So I did run for office. I ran in 1974 and lost, and returned to Princeton in 1974, but returned married with a baby on the way. I was married at 20. My wife was like 17 when we got married, but legally in Jersey you could do that with the parents' permission. And we had our first child the following year, in 1975. My first daughter was born. But I went back to Princeton, married with a baby on the way, but I finished Princeton. I had to work, couldn't run track.
What was your degree in?
Politics. I graduated Princeton cum laude in 1974 after leading another sit-in, the takeover of Nassau Hall. We formed an organization on campus called the People's Front for the Liberation of Southern Africa to get Princeton to divest its funds from companies that did business with South Africa. And we were successful in a minor way. Princeton chose 2 or 3 companies and divested their stock. But the anti-apartheid movement on Princeton's campus was phenomenal, because there were so many phenomenal students. One of the things I said when hold on one second.